Alright guys, it's been a few months. It's been 6 months since I made my last video, and I feel kind of bad about that, but it's been busy summer. Went back home to Montana for a few weeks, helped my parents out, done a lot of projects, especially on the car, a lot of home projects, trailer, hunting, it's just been busy. So basically in this video, I wanted to go through what has been going on with the 70 Challenger. I'll go through what I've done in the last couple months on it, all the work I've put in, the car show I went to, my first car show ever, which was really fun, and then kind of some goals and where we're looking at going with the Challenger. So going through what we've done to the car, we'll start at the front here. I'll go all the way around the exterior. We'll show the interior, and then we'll go through the engine. So starting off on the fenders here, I've got these marker lights completely redone. These are brand new lenses from Classic Industries. The housings I sent to a guy, his name is Mike Ross, BEA Restorations out in Ohio. He actually offered to do those for free because I had the pigtails on them, but he found that they wouldn't fit, so he ended up using his own and charged me a little bit, but it wasn't a big deal. So these are completely restored, new gaskets, everything. Got the front end mostly back together, just missing the bumper because it is bent and the frame is bent, so it wouldn't fit on very well. The headlights were primed over. There we go. They were primed over, so I took a little blade to them, a little razor, and cleaned them off. Got the valence back on. This thing should actually be sitting out about here. That's how bent a lot of this metal is in the frame. I'm going to have it taken to a frame shop here this winter. But yeah, grill, all new hardware, bolts, screws, nuts, the little clip nuts on there. Dode. She's Dode. Find a G somewhere. Yeah, there's the other marker light. Put my Challenger decals back on the fenders. These clipped in really nice. They're nice and secure. Got the remote mirror put back on, and I don't have the remote part of it, the linkage in here. It's just, it's sitting in the door there. It's just routed, but nonetheless, that's back on. Got the rear markers. Again, new lenses, new gaskets. The housings didn't need anything because the pigtails and where the lamp goes are part of the rear harness that's in the car right now. Rear brake lights are still all original. The only thing that I've redone is the gaskets and seals, and I went away with the old sheet metal nuts that came from the factory, and I ended up just using some nylon, lock nuts on there. So these suckers are held down really tight. We'll come back to this paperwork here near kind of the end of the video. Got the original gas cap back on with a new trim piece, looking really nice there. Got the other Challenger decal on this fender here. Let's see, a few other things that have happened that we've gone through. I've got all new brake lines, all new fuel lines. The gas tank, let's look at that. Gas tank was restored. I did it myself. That was put back on. Looking good there. The brake calipers on the front, I'm going to throw some photos up here to show you that. So I took those off and stripped them down with the wire wheel, got all the rust off. I primed them, got them painted. I ended up going with a high temperature engine paint, and I as best as I could, I color matched it to what the car is going to end up looking like. So cured it in my oven, and they ended up looking really nice. Really happy with how those turned out. Got new hoses on those. All that is hooked up back together. And that's pretty much it from high level on kind of the outside of the car. So going to the interior here. Got the inner door panels back on. This door is going to need some real work on it. I got to do some welding on these holes because they're mostly stripped out. I ended up using some bigger screws to hold those on. Got the original door handles, the original glass handle on there. Got the original dash pad, which is looking terrible. We're going to be getting a new one of those at some point. Here, the column. So the column's got an all-new ignition switch, new turn signal switch. This thing finally clicks again. Really nice there. Yeah, so I got some new wiring in here. Very basic wiring harness that I made myself. All it does is it starts the engine and drives. That's all it does. I've got no headlights, no turn signals, no brake lights. All that is for ignition start. But nonetheless, that's another project we're going to have this winter. The brake pedal bracket here I took off, restored, sanded it down, got down to bare metal, primed it, painted it, and happened to drop it a few times, but no big deal. Got the bucket seats back in with the rear seat. They're supposed to be black, but previous owner liked white. These are going to get redone again at some point, reupholstered. Got the console back in. It's not in place right because the shifter is aftermarket and it doesn't adapt to this very well, but nonetheless, it's back in. And then got the other panel on with the other accessories there. Finally got a mirror in, as you can see yourself there. Booyah. And then this panel was out, but I was able to get that back in, got it screwed down. And again, the original window handles there, so really nice. Oh, and then I was also able to get these back on with some new screw hardware. So yeah, there's the interior so far. There's, again, a lot of work that's going to be going into that. But now we'll go through the engine. Maybe. There we go. There she is. The old 440. So I figure we're going to start from this side, go this way, and we'll start from the front here. So here's my fuel pump. This is that one that I used when I was running from a gas tank out, off on the side. I ended up going with this one because it's a deadhead pump, and when it reaches PSI, it actually shuts off. Or it doesn't shut off. It just stops putting pressure. It stops pumping. It still runs, but it stops pumping. I don't know exactly how it works. But the Holley pump that I have, it just runs continually. And I didn't want that because I didn't want it to overflow the regulator and the carburetor. I didn't want to flood the engine. I didn't want it leak in. And so I ended up just going with that. And it's just kind of bolted in there and wired up as best as I could just to get it to run. Don't mind the wiring here. It worked. So since the last video, I've got a new alternator on here because the last one, I didn't know it, but the brushes went out and it actually killed the battery, which was nice. Not really. Yeah, and I mean, it killed it dead. It killed all the cells in it. I took it to AutoZone. They couldn't recover it. Luckily, it was under warranty, so I was able to get a replacement for that. Yeah, so new alternator. Still got the Edelbrock 800 on there. That is such a nice carburetor. I like the Holleys because they're a nice performance, but this thing, it makes this engine come alive. I love it. Got the aluminum water pump. You've seen that before. The radiator, seen that. New battery, but same battery as before. And this is what has really piqued my interest so far. So all new braking system. I mean everything. All new brake lines, front to rear, side to side. And I ended up picking up this booster from a guy in Northern California. Sold it to me with it's a used booster and a brand new master cylinder. It's never seen fluid, so it's the first time that it has seen fluid in it. And if I can get in here good, I've got the new proportioning valve with all new lines and fittings and looking really nice. Oh, and here's another kind of fun thing that I did. So being a mechanical engineer, I'm very good at 3D modeling. So I was able to take the old connectors that I had for the firewall and I modeled them up, 3D printed them, 3D printed the bulkhead disconnect, and it all worked. Everything plugged in good. I had good continuity, and probably going to roll with that for now. So yeah, that's kind of a high level where we're at on the car, and yeah, I'm emphasizing high level. Like, there was a lot of work that has gone into this. It would take me hours to go through every detail that I've done on it, but again, I don't have time for that. So since we've gone through the car and just talked about high level stuff, I want to talk about the car show I went to. So I live in northern Utah, and Brigham City is a town nearby. And every year they have it's called the Peach Days Car Show. Actually, it's the largest car show in Utah. This year was a lot smaller because they had construction going on in town there, but I was able to get this bad boy going and get it down to the show, get her down in a spot, and have her on display. So the story of getting this to the car show, worked on it endlessly for about 6-7 weeks, and the night before, finally got her on the trailer at about 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, and was able to get up early, get to the show by 8 o'clock, which is when it started, got her registered, got her off the trailer, met up with my buddy Shane and his wife Elise, and their two cars. They've got a 68 Camaro and a 57 Bel Air convertible, well, both convertibles. And they followed me to the show because I didn't exactly trust the car very well, considering it's the second time I've driven it ever, and second time it's been driven in 21 years. But yeah, get to the show, find my spot, and when I go to pull into the spot, or I pull back into the spot, I get about here, and I go throw it in reverse, I give it some gas, and it goes forward. So en route from the high school to the show, I lost my linkage from the shifter, so I was stuck in drive. I'll go into that here a little later. But yeah, so I had some good people there at the show. They helped push me back halfway into a spot. I'll show that there on that photo. And that actually ended up working out really nice because I was able to have all of this paperwork and everything out on the fender. And because the car was sticking out in where everyone was walking, there were so many people that stopped by, and they looked at the original build sheets, and they went through all these details and everything that I had printed off about the car. So just kind of real quick going through all this stuff. So I've got one on the dash, and then this is my nicer one, the 1970 license plate. And then I've got the original build sheets for the car. This one's all nice and laminated, and this one's in really rough condition, but I'm able to piece together the two of them and get all the codes and everything. So then there's a website online where you can put in all the codes, and it generates this aftermarket build sheet. It takes the original format, but it makes it a whole sheet. Yeah, so there's another one I have. And on top of this, it prints off a vehicle report. So the build sheet report of every single code and what it means on every line, from going from the top down. So this is what I've been working to for the last year and a half to get this car as close to original as I can. I've been looking for a 340 small block. I've got I need to find a 727 because the 727 I have in here is for big block only. But yeah, so it creates a whole build sheet report. And then this is a little story I wrote up about the previous owners and how I got to get the car and what I've done to it, and kind of the... She really is a project. my build journal. This is actually the computer typed up version of what I've written by hand, but this has got a lot more details in it. This has got more schematics and things that I've drawn up for myself. And then I ended up taking kind of the cooler parts of this build, being a 340 and a Western Sport Special edition of the Challenger. And this sheet just very briefly goes into detail about the rarity of Western Sport Special and 340 and where it was built and how that package, or that combination of packages worked out. So, yeah, A91 is the Western Sport Special. It's a 340. This car was built in Hamtramck, Michigan, and is one of 3 with that combination of codes to exist. Now, I know people are like, well, you can say that about any combination of codes and then it's a 1 of 1. Well, you know, I don't really give a shit. Yeah, so after the car show, packed everything up and drove her back down the block and a half to the high school. That in itself was a trek. Trek, is that a word? I don't know. But that was a journey. So I had no reverse. I could only go forward. I go forward, I get up on the street, and we get up the block, and this thing is just screaming, just wah, in first gear. You know, it won't upshift, won't downshift, won't do anything. And I don't have a tack on here, so I'm guessing 3,000 RPM the whole time. And I get the block and a half down to the high school. I pull up close to the trailer, and this thing is just smoking and spewing steam out the hood, and in the cabin here, we're getting smoked out. And we turn it off, pop the hood, and I see fluid is just dumping out of the radiator. I mean, it overheated. So, well, it wasn't bad. With shutting it off, the temp gauge I have on it went and completely maxed out. But I guess that's what happens when you turn it off. If the fluid were pumping, it wouldn't have done that. So it overheated, which I never expected. And I think what happened was, so when I looked at the radiator, you can see it's red in here with rust. Maybe you can see that. I don't know if you can. But on the top in here, if I kind of feel this around. Yeah, it's rusty. So there was a lot of sediment in this block, and it worked its way, you know, through the system. And what I think happened was the thermostat housing got clogged or rusted shut or something. I don't know exactly. I haven't taken it apart yet, but come on. There we go. But yeah, I think the thermostat housing is gummed up and was stuck closed when it opened up, and I think that's what caused it to overheat. But nonetheless, I'm going to figure that out at some point. Yeah, so after we pull up to the spot there, I turned it off, let it cool down, and I pulled my truck and trailer forward because I didn't have enough room to pull up, back up, and then straighten up to the trailer. I had one shot because I had no reverse. So pulled the truck forward and let it cool down to about 180, cranked it over, quickly got it up, gunned it up on the trailer, and tied her up, called it a day. So then, yeah, got it back to home and got it in the driveway. Then I let it sit for a week in the driveway because I was tired as hell. Both from being out in the sun all day and working for 7 straight weeks on this car just to get it to the car show. But it was worth it. So I took a week off. I just let it sit in the driveway through 2 rainstorms, which I felt kind of bad about, but hey, whatever. It's going to get repainted eventually. It's fine. So, yeah, so that was the car show. Ended up being really fun. Big success. My first car show. People loved it. They love seeing an old project car like this, especially being a Challenger. And yeah, it ended up being a really good day, not night. So after the car show being a big success, there's a lot of stuff that I learned about the car, things that I need to do, and now I'm just going to run through real quick what the future is for this car for the next few months. The one big thing that I found was I didn't have a kickdown linkage on the transmission. It's supposed to be hooked up to the carburetor, and when you floor it, gas it, whatever, it pulls a linkage on the transmission, and it basically tells the transmission to downshift. So that's why I didn't have any power when I was driving this. I don't think the torque converter was engaging very well. Yeah, all because of that linkage that I didn't have. So, and I'm relieved that it actually was the shifter cable that melted while I was stuck in drive. I thought I burnt the transmission up going to the show, but turns out I don't think I did. I think, that was just, that was the only issue I had. The engine. So, big thing with the engine is on the head, on the passenger side here. So, right here, this bolt, there's no bolt. That's because there's no bolt hole for a bolt to go in. The casting is broke away off of the cast iron head, and somebody had brazed it in the past to fix it, but when I went to put a bolt in it, it just broke that brazing right back out. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so I couldn't bolt the valve cover down on this end, and it was leaking oil out, this corner, dripping down on the header here, and dripping down on the block, running down the block, dripping on the header in the back, and smoking like mad, and going through the hole right here for the heater, and smoking us out in the cab. So, basically what's going to happen this coming late fall and into the winter, I'm going to pull this engine, I'm going to pull the trans. I'm thinking I'm just going to send it to a guy to have him go through the transmission and rebuild it, new clutches, new gaskets and everything, and seals. The engine, I'm going to pull it out, pull the heads off, have them sent into a machine shop, and hopefully they can fix that. If not, I know a guy that's got a ton of 440 heads, so I can just pick up another one. And then there's a few things. I'm not going to rebuild the engine. I'm just going to have the heads freshened, and I'm going to go through the block. I'm going to look at the pistons, look at the cylinders, look at the crank, just kind of do an overall inspection of the engine. And there's a few other things, like there's a header bolt here that's broke out, actually is stripped out of the block that way. And that's just sealed in there with RTV. So I need to have that fixed. Either put a helicoil or something in there. And actually, that's not on the block. That's on the head. That makes it a lot better. So there's that. And since I'm going to be having the powertrain out of this car, I'm going to be taking the whole front end apart, all the grille assembly, the headlights, the fenders, and I'm going to be cutting the inner fender aprons and all the sheet metal that's attached to, the unibody. Cut all that out, and cut the radiator support out, and completely redo everything. So I'm hoping by March of next year, this is going to have a whole new front end. It's going to have a whole new front end, a straightened frame, a freshened motor, a freshened transmission. I'm going to work on the wiring to hopefully have headlights and turn signals and brake lights and everything. Because my goal is to be able to drive this for real next spring. Yeah, so that's everything I want to talk about in this video. Showed you everything that I've done so far. Again, high level. I've said that a lot in this video. Talked about the car show I went to and the future plans. I'm going to try to do some more videos on this. Taking the motor out of the trans. This will be interesting. It's my first time pulling an engine, at least at this size. But yeah, these will be good projects to show. Hopefully you stayed to the end of the video. Hope you liked it, and take it easy.